All right, we're continuing to follow the breaking news today from the 2020 presidential race. Cory Booker announcing he is suspending his campaign for the White House. The New Jersey senator made the announcement on Twitter earlier today. Booker announced his bid for the White House nearly a year ago and built his campaign on a message of unity. Joining us now on the telephone is Sabrina Singh. She's the national press secretary for the Senator Cory Booker campaign. Thank you so much for joining us, Sabrina.
Hi, Vlad. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
So explain to our audience what led to this decision.
Yeah, well, as you've mentioned, Cory has run a very disciplined campaign. He has remained consistent in his message, too, about bringing people together and really believing that, through common pain comes common purpose. But unfortunately, this was just not his moment. We needed more resources to expand our operations to be competitive in the early states. And Cory has said from day one he was not going to, take away resources and pull them away from other candidates. He was always going to be in this race if he saw a path for victory. And unfortunately, this weekend he decided that that path was not going to be able to come to fruition as we headed into the early states.
It's sort of remarkable in the hyper-partisan society that we live in right now, Sabrina. Senator Booker talked about the power of empathy, and he said often that he would beat President Trump at the polls with a message of love. And in this parting message, he actually doubled down on that message.
Darkness doesn't drive out darkness. It's actually light. And so, Cory has always campaigned on this idea of courageous empathy and love, and that, overcoming some of our biggest challenges. And I still believe that, too.
So let me ask you this. There's only now one African-American candidate still in the Democratic primary, and in tomorrow's debate, there will be 6 white candidates on the stage. Are you surprised by that?
Yes, of course. We started out with the most historically diverse Democratic field we've ever seen. And it's unfortunate that, Cory's voice will not only not be on that stage tomorrow, but he won't even be in the race anymore. And I think that's, it's unfortunate to not have more diversity of candidates on that stage. I think what we saw from our wins in 2017 and 2018, we flipped the House by electing diverse candidates up and down the ticket. And so it is really unfortunate. I think it's a detriment to the Democratic Party to not have more diversity up there. But at the end of the day, I think Cory really made a mark on this race. He was the first candidate to introduce such a sweeping gun violence prevention program, a gun licensing plan, and that got, half the field behind it. So while we're not in this race anymore, I think Cory's voice loomed large over it. And we were just, so proud of the race that he ran and that we ran over here.
And one of the things that I found really sort of remarkable is that Senator Booker, from sort of the time he entered national politics, Sabrina, has always been talked about as somebody who potentially as a president of the United States. And he did build up in the early days of the campaign. He scooped up a lot of endorsements in early states. He got, great responses at sort of multi-candidate events. And poll after poll in the early days showed that he was consistently polling very, very well. And yet, I'm curious why you think that for someone who spent so many years building ties with black leaders, that he struggled early on with black voters, and that he never really broke out in South Carolina. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and I think that has a large part to do with the resources that we had available. Even though you and I know who Cory Booker was coming up as mayor, you go into the early states, and a lot of people just didn't know who he was. He did not come into the race with a name recognition like Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders, and we always were struggled, I think, to financially compete with some of those other candidates, and that just makes it harder to, get your name out there and get in people's minds. So when a pollster calls, they remember you. And I think overall, while we ran such a great race, and I'm so proud of the way that we have campaigned, Cory couldn't self-fund his race either. And so that was also another struggle. And to put a finer point on it, this was the most unusual cycle we've ever seen, I think, before such a crowded Democratic field. And, while Cory is not going to be the nominee for president, he is definitely going to be the person campaigning the hardest for whoever that nominee is to hopefully, beat Donald Trump in 2020.
All right, Sabrina Singh, thank you so much for spending a little time with us. I know you're probably getting a lot of requests, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Sabrina.
it, too.